What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down what's happening with the economic calendar and some very important levels to be watching for on SPY and these other tickers. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and the offer ends very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the market. In my morning video, I told you all about these levels on SPY to be watching for. If we broke above this yellow trend line, we would have turned bullish. We could have seen this thing attempt to break out, try to get to, to fill this gap up here. If we broke below this yellow line, you guys can see it right here, we would turn a lot more bearish if we ended up losing this support, which is where we had this previous bottom right here. And in doing so, I'm going to just change these colors so it doesn't really stand out as much now, since these levels are not as prevalent now. SPY has broken below the critical support, and now we're actually approaching 470. There is no guarantee it's going to hold right now, as we're getting some bearish volume, some bearish flow. And it's looking like we're going to be approaching 469 very soon, in my opinion. So first off, let's watch 470 just to be safe if that breaks or not. But in my opinion, it's going to break soon. This is looking very weak, and the trend is now turning in favor of the bears. The bears are getting a lot more control and support right now. So I also want to add that when it comes to some data, we do have the Fed Beige Book coming out, which is going to give us more projections about the Fed's policies. We also have Williams from the Fed giving a speech soon. But the biggest thing that's caused the market to drop is a lot of these Fed speakers are coming out and they're saying the Fed is likely not going to be cutting in March. The market was pricing that in, expecting a cut in March. Now the market's pricing in the Fed to possibly not do that, because the Fed is in no position to say that with high certainty, especially because the last CPI was hotter than expected. So the Fed may have to keep rates the same for longer, keeping them elevated for longer, which is what is really spooking the markets. There's also some news that came out about some economic data involving China and such. So now SPY is starting this downtrend, and we're approaching this 470 support. If we lose this support, I'm going to be watching 469 first. I mean, we could see an attempt to hold or some kind of reaction around that first point drop, but the real critical support, if we lose that, is going to be 468. 468 is going to be the much more important level historically, so I'll be watching that with a lot. I'll watch that a lot more carefully, if anything. So make sure you watch these levels very closely and see how it reacts. But we're basically testing 470 right now. Our next try is between 469 and 468. 469 is a very minor support, but 468 is a lot stronger. Watch those levels carefully. SPY is looking bearish, in my opinion, from a technical standpoint right now. So with that being said about SPY, what about for the QQQ and the other tickers? Well, with the negative news that came out, the more hawkish tone from many of these Fed speakers, you can see the QQQ is trying to hold up. We ended up kind of like holding this support right over here before breaking back down. This thing failed to get this breakout. It tried to hold up and it's failing. Watching 404 as critical support. If we lose this, we're going to be watching for a drop all the way down to 402. If that fails us, 399 to 400 is coming. For resistance, make sure you watch 405.71 as critical resistance. If it breaks that, we have this imbalance, which is very close to 408, followed by this gap fill. We're actually losing the critical support. We're approaching 404, so this is actually favoring the bears a bit more. And if we end up losing that support, look for a drop towards 402 very soon on the QQQ. This trend is starting to turn, and it's beginning to favor the bears a bit more. When it comes to Tesla stock, I just want to mention that Tesla is also looking a little bit weaker, because I actually called out some important levels on Tesla. Basically, we have resistance. We had resistance at this 217 area. We had to break 217 to push up to 220. We failed to do so. We kind of tagged this and rejected. Tesla was chopping around 213.8 today. Then we ended up breaking below that, so now we're in the 212s. So this is where we have critical support, right? 213.8 to 214. Then we also have 212. The most important support is 212. Tesla has to try to hold this for it to kind of like hold this level. If it loses this, there's going to be a risk of more downside. There's minor support at 210. It's not that strong. Strong support is going to be at this 207 range. That's where, we might see some buyers try to defend it, but Tesla will have to test this level first if we end up losing 212 and even 210. So I'll be watching that very carefully. Tesla's still kind of shopping in this 212 area. Watch it very carefully. We'll see if Tesla loses this. That is going to be key for Tesla. Otherwise, we have these levels still drawn out, so watch it very carefully. We also have resistance at 213.8, not to mention 214. Then we have 215 above that, and then 217. Those are some minor resistance levels. My levels are also very tight right now because Tesla's in a very tight range. If you guys couldn't help but notice that Tesla's been very stuck, very, very tight price action. That's why I call it very tight levels. But once again, 212 is going to be critical, very, very critical for Tesla. Watch that very, very carefully. For Nvda, Nvda is once again showing some weakness. We got this big rejection, came down to support, actually approached 547 right here, which is where we had this previous level. Just under 546, so just over 546. Bounced off of this and got rejected off 560, came back down, bounced off 555. It held these levels so far. I just didn't actually draw out 547. That's the only one I missed. But for now, basically, Nvidia was showing some weakness as the market was dropping. Now Nvidia is trying to come back a bit, but overall, it's looking a little bit weaker. There could be a change in the trend on Nvidia. This could be suggesting we have like a triple top up here. We're rejecting, and we could be establishing a downward trend from here. So right now, we have resistance at 557 and then 560. We have support right now at 555, 552, followed by basically 550. There's some very tight support in the 550s, followed by 547. And we have 545 and 542. So if anything, Nvidia is looking a little bit more bearish because we have a triple top rejection. We're starting a potential downtrend. We could be establishing lower highs and lower lows. Nvidia could be shifting, and this could track the market lower. So watch this very carefully. Watch these levels and the support on Nvidia. It is starting to look a little bit weaker. For Apple stock, I'd say that Apple is looking kind of flat, a little bit weak. It hasn't broken its critical support yet, but it's just shuffling and kind of stuck between 182 and 181. I do want to mention that Apple is flat. It's not really trying to bounce yet. It has like a potential bearish structure that could be developing here. You could establish like a downtrend from right here, so I could even draw that out if you want. But I'm going to be watching to see how well it holds, at least for the time being. So we can actually draw it out just like this. Apple has a potential downtrend that could be being established, but we're going to be watching this resistance where this trend line is just for now. I'm going to keep this up, and we'll see how it holds, at least from there. You can even draw out like another trend line like this. This would also work really well. Just like this, you can draw out kind of like a wedge that's kind of starting to form. But if anything, I would still mention that Apple's looking relatively weak. So that being said, guys, I just want to mention that Apple could backtest 181 right here. It's still very possible to backtest 181, but it's kind of shuffling right now. It tried to get up to 182.5, but it failed to break that resistance. And now it's just continuing to shuffle between 180, basically 182 and 181. It's going to likely continue to do so as time goes on, but I think it's going to retest 181. So just be very careful and see if this holds. Apple is not looking the strongest. It's very flat for now, but make sure you watch support very carefully. All right, so that's it for this one. Thank you all so much for listening. Hopefully this video was helpful as I broke down some important levels, and we'll see how things go as time goes on. Get ready for some more reports, do what you have to do, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next one. Thank you, and peace out.